Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. You sound just like Kathleen Turner.
Wow, that's awesome. Let's rock and roll. Let's make it happen. Let's make music. Let's make money. Oh, wait, we don't make money. This show. That's right.
we serve a, wait, we have a different mission or we serve a higher purpose.
That's right.
That was good.
All right, let's start.
Good. No, that's too late.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just.
Are we knee deep?
Well, we're wading into the depths. That's the truth. That's the truth of it. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're not, in bed. You sound good. You sound good.
I sound good considering I've got an ear infection.
So maybe I don't sound good. If you have an ear infection.
I only half hear you.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, we've got a lot. I worry. I don't worry. I'm not really worried. I'm not the worrying type, but I am aware that tonight's show could we will not finish the conversation that we're going to have tonight in the time that we will be having it, and I'm just aware of that because that conversation could take days. So I think we just do with what we got. I'm going to pre-apologize to you that I know we're not going to finish.
Oh,
is that fair?
That's all right.
I think this is kind of a flagship. Tonight we're going to be talking about Aliens.
Z.
Yes. Did I not pronounce that hard enough?
I just wanted to emphasize it.
Aliens are going to be talked about, and but first we need to talk about you and your new identity. Where do people find you, Dr. Nelson?
At SodaCreekFilm.com. They can find me there. They can find me at Rash Pixel. They can find me at Soda Creek Film on Twitter, Soda Creek Film on Facebook, everywhere.
Excellent.
Soda Creek Film.
Excellent. And you should do that. Find the kindly Andy Nelson there. And you can find me at Pete Wright on Twitter and at rashpixel.tv is probably the easiest way to track me down there and Twitter. Facebook, too. Find me on Facebook. Been getting a lot of good links on Facebook related specifically to Aliens and the Alien saga, and so we'll share some of those. But first, we have a couple of trailers we want to talk about. I think this was a 2-trailer week. There were two
trailer,
worth
and then we should
about.
just mention that I finally did see the Avengers.
Oh yeah, we should do. Do you want to do that first?
Let's do that first.
Do it. Tell me where you stand on this movie.
Well, I was very, very happily. I shouldn't say happily surprised. I guess I was hoping it would be good, and so I kind of got what I went in expecting. So that was great. I thought they, just like you said, they did a great job taking a story with a large group of characters that all needed story time, and they actually found a way to give them all story time, develop all their stories, and keep it not just focusing on one person, but they found a way to actually have a story about a team, which I thought was really impressive.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I think, when I think about team movies, teams that are larger than 4, because I'm thinking specifically about, like Mission Impossible, that's kind of a team movie.
That's the one that comes to my mind that for me was a failure. Only because of that.
You're talking about the Mission Impossible 1 or this whole series?
Well, really, I think the whole series to me, I think that they got back on track around 3 and 4. But 1 and 2 felt more just like any other James Bond or, lone fighter. I mean, it kind of reintroduced some team elements to it, I guess, but it never felt like a team story.
No, it really didn't. I don't even think, I really liked Ghost Protocol. I thought it was terrific, but it did not satisfy the team structure the way I think Avengers did, and I think it did exceptionally well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I like the team itself that they had in Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, but it was still Ethan Hunt. I mean, that was his gig. Everybody else did what he said. Right.
I agree. Yeah, this was really a team effort, and it was all about them working together and dealing with each other, and it was great. I'd be hard pressed to say which one was the central focus of the story.
Yeah. I think that's really it, and I think that's I was actually talking to my dad about this today, and he said, of course they because we were talking about all the kind of A-list action and actors that were in this thing, and he said, well, of course they were all excited about it because they all have their own franchise out of this gig. Like when you think about, you think about Tony Stark and he's got 2 movies and another one coming, and
right.
You know, what are they going to do? A Black Widow movie? I can only assume
They certainly could.
Sure, I would see it twice.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got their own franchise out of this, and so of course they're all going to come play nice. I mean, I didn't get the feeling that any one of the sort of character performances was trying to outshine the other. So I'm thrilled to hear you say you like this.
The one thing that I think was just for me, I wouldn't even say it was a disappointment, but it just wasn't exciting, was the aliens. And I mentioned this to you earlier, but they just seemed kind of blah. It's just like, oh, we need some massive force to come in and be the guys that get smashed. Let's pick these bland aliens as the ones to do that. And that kind of left me a little, disappointed. But I liked the big giant flying caterpillar things more than the little aliens on the jet skis or whatever.
You know, I think you're all right. You know, that was one of those things I've been thinking about. I grant you, maybe the aliens could have used some more oomph, but really, you said it. I mean, the purpose they serve in the movie is not to be the scary alien force. The purpose they serve in the movie is to be a target, to be smashed. I mean, that's why they're there. A lot of pixels on the screen to be destroyed. Because that's what I want to see. I don't want to see scary aliens running. I want to see explosions of aliens, and I don't need them to be that exciting to be targets.
Well, but there are ways to make it to have an ending with a bad guy where you feel, because your good guys are only as strong as your bad guys.
Well, and Loki, I think, was an exceptionally great bad guy for this film.
He was great, but one of the best parts of the movie is when the Hulk
that was
pounds him and just puny God after he smashed him. I mean, that was great. Yeah. I mean, that whole bit was great. But then Loki's out of the picture until they come back, pick him up, and arrest him, and
all right.
That was it. And it's like, okay, I could have used a little more excitement with the bad guys there, but all in all, it was very fun, and I absolutely loved the Hulk. They did such a great job with, or Mark Ruffalo and Joss Whedon all together did such a great job with the Hulk.
No, you're right. I hate this movie. That totally ruined it for me. I'm done. I'm done talking about it. I hope they don't make a sequel, because this was a waste.
Screw them.
I want to go see The Great Gatsby.
There. Now we're back. Now we're talking trailers.
Segue, right?
Wow. I guess that was a segue.
I hope they are planning a Great Gatsby 2 already. I want to see. I hope so too. I want to see the sequel.
With what's his buddy's name? Nick
Carraway.
Nick Carraway. He'll have his own franchise.
He's going to be his own. Oh my goodness! This is a fascinating movie. This is Baz Luhrmann. Next Baz Luhrmann film, and all of Baz Luhrmann's films. I can't. I mean, you think about Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge. Give me more. Oh, he did the what did he do?
Strictly Ballroom.
Strictly Ballroom, right? I pretty much name the movie, and I go through the exact same kind of emotional response to it. Ugh.
Did you see Australia?
Yes.
That was atrocious.
Yes. No, and that's okay. Except for that movie. Yeah. Except for that movie, because I had not thought about that. I've written that one off. But all of them, I go through the same emotional connections, which is, Baz Luhrmann's doing another thing. And then it gets closer, and I think, I should really see this. And then I don't see it, because invariably somebody who I consider to be a maudlin drama queen will come into my life and say, you're going to love XYZ movie if it's Baz Luhrmann's movie. And so
was that me? Are you pretending that's me?
No, but it very well could have been.
It could be.
It could have been, yeah. And then, oh my God, I just love Baz. Baz can do no wrong. And then I see it sometimes years later, and I fall in love with it. And that's, Moulin Rouge is the one that really sticks out. I really love Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I do.
And so, Strictly Ballroom, terrific. So, but you're right. Australia was a tough one. That was a tough sit.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is a shame, but
shame for a country that I'm so in love with, and
yeah, and you would think he would be have done better work with that too.
Yeah,
one would think.
Yeah.
But I really wow, I'm intrigued by this. I don't remember the hip hop bass line being quite as prevalent in the 1922 New York sort of Long Island set. I don't remember that. It's like they got all the flapper costumes and the fancy shiny clothes.
Nor do I think that the vehicles could drive like 90 miles an hour down the road.
I don't remember that either.
Wrong.
This is I want to say this is based on a comic strip more than the Fitzgerald book, but this should be an interesting interpretation of Gatsby, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and let's see who else is Tobey Maguire, yeah.
And I think it's going to be an interesting one. I'll watch it. It comes out Christmas, so we've got some time to kill before it rolls around. But
this will be an interesting one. So the trailer hit this week. The other one that hit this week is the new Skyfall teaser.
James Bond 23.
What do we think about this?
Well, it's a teaser. It's definitely a teaser. You don't get a whole lot out of it at all. And I didn't even really get a sense as to what the story was without reading the little blurb that came on the Apple trailers page that said that, they have to deal, James and M have to deal with something coming back from her past.
Yeah.
That sure doesn't pop up in the trailer.
No, you don't get that either.
No.
It
looks fun. It's got the fun James Bond lines. I'm looking forward to it.
Some men are coming to kill us. We're going to kill them first. God, I mean, I'm going to say that all over. I wish I could use it in more contexts. Really, there's one context.
There's really only one context that you can use that in.
Yeah. So when I find some men who are coming to kill me and another party, then I can do that. But anyway, so I'm excited about it.
Or you could be killing them with kindness.
I could, or comedy.
Mm-hmm. See, there's more uses.
No, you're right. This is a fairly. It turns out this is a fairly fluid line. I could use this for more places. That's good.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that. That one comes out. That one actually comes out pretty soon, right? That's Well, it is a 2012 film, so this year at least.
October? Is it? I can't remember what it said at the end.
I'm looking at it. I can't either. Anyway, so that looks good. I'm excited to see that one, and so I will see that one. I don't know. We're going to have to start our series, like we're doing for Aliens. If we're going to do that with Bond,
oh my goodness,
we may have to preempt.
That's going to take
now.
us 2 years. Well, it won't take 2 years. It'll take a half a year. Boy, I'm off on my math. It's my inner ear calculations. Apparently, that's where my math skills reside. 2 years, half a year. It's all the same.
Do you? So one of the things that I've been. I mean, we've got. Let's see. Are there any other big movies in 2012 that you're really excited about?
Yes. There's Snow White and the Huntsman, which I think is going to be a fantastic film.
Yeah. Any that we haven't talked about though.
Oh, that we haven't talked about.
Any that are sticking out?
Have we talked about The Bourne Legacy?
We haven't. I don't know that we've talked about that one much. I'm very excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm very excited about that one.
Jeremy Renner of Hawkeye and Suddenly Everything Else fame.
Yes, that's right.
One of those actors who's just kind of shown up. But it Ghost Protocol, this, Avengers. God, he's been in a lot of stuff all of a sudden.
Hurt Locker.
Well,
yeah. I mean, it all kind of stemmed.
Yeah, it all comes off of Hurt Locker. So that's terrific. Men in Black 3's coming out. Looks kind of funny. Josh Brolin.
I don't know if I saw the second one. I think I'm going to have to see the second one before I. No, I don't know if I should. I've heard bad things about the second one.
You don't need to see the second one. Jermaine Clement is in it. I'm very excited about Jermaine. So that'll be good. I don't know much about Jack the Giant Killer.
Ewan
McGregor.
Yeah. Is it?
This is Bryan Singer's.
Yeah.
Film. So I don't know much about this one.
I'm excited about that one. I think it's going to be an interesting take on the Jack and the Beanstalk story.
What do you know about Dread?
Nothing. Is that DREAD?
DREDD.
Okay. As in judge?
As in judge. And it's Carl Urban is playing, I assume, Judge Dredd. And it's in post, and it's coming out this year.
The Rob Schneider vehicle that came out in the late 90s was so perfect. Why redo it?
One would think that. But, they're doing Total Recall again. Maybe. It's Lena Headey, Carl Urban. This is Carl Urban. I love as Bones from Star Trek. Star Trek is exciting me again because I had not made the connection that now his name is I'm going to have a terrible time. Something Cumberbatch. What's his name?
Yeah.
What's his name? Cumberbatch. Sherlock.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man, I dig that guy. I'm very excited about that. And let's see. I think that's it. I'm not terribly excited about Battleship, but it's been promoted so much, I'll have to see it. But there is one.
Benedict
Cumberbatch.
Give me a minute.
All right, that was good. Okay, maybe I'm finished.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on and talk about this stinking movie, shall we?
Yeah. God, let's just get it over with.
Here's what I've been thinking about all day about this movie that has really struck me. I texted you last night while I was watching it with my cat. And my cat and I were talking about an interesting thing because we were talking last week about Alien.
Yeah,
and how
did your cat feel the Jonesy connection going on too, like in Aliens?
No, actually, she was really upset. She felt like Jonesy was, as I posted on Facebook, that Jonesy was a grotesquely underutilized asset in this film.
Yeah, that's for sure.
This was really that was a part that was really missing. But what was interesting, we talked about last week, we talked about how, how Alien redefined certain elements of science fiction and horror fantasy kind of a thing. And the way that movie kind of is bookmarked in our own sort of personal timeline of watching movies. And this one strikes me that I don't remember the theatrical release of this film. Like,
really?
More than any other movie, this movie has been redefined for me by the director's cut. I've seen the director's cut so many times that I have a hard time remembering what I saw in the theaters.
Oh, sure.
Like it's this movie. Like the director's cut, the 2 hours and 45 minutes director's cut is like, this is when I think about a director's cut, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, well, Aliens was the first that mattered to me, that did anything really significant with the movie.
And it may have been, aside from like Close Encounters, which was an actual theatrical director's cut that came out a few years later, but I don't recall there being a whole lot of director's cuts until after Aliens came out, and then subsequently The Abyss, and I think
subsequently John, what's his name's movies? What's his name?
James Cameron.
John Carmen. James Cameron's movies. He's a dude you just
German twin.
Yes, exactly. You just get the feeling that he's never quite finished.
Kind of like George, although at least with James Cameron, to his credit, this Aliens came out in a time when this was 86. It came out when there were not these huge multiplexes everywhere. I saw Aliens in a movie theater that had one screen, right?
Right.
The biggest theater in town was, I think, I don't think the 6 screen had opened yet. I think it was still a 3 screen theater that was the biggest in town. Mm-hmm. So there was a much bigger fight for screen space back in those days, and there was a much bigger battle going on with the studios themselves about running time, because they needed, instead of having it on 3 or 4 screens like they do now, playing everywhere. They had to fight to have it on the one screen and have it playing as many times that day as they could. And so they were really, really adamant about getting movies released as 2 hours or under as much as possible. And so they really fought to get it shorter. And that's why. And then that's why he was able later to release the, quote, director's cut the way that he wanted it initially to be released, which they just wouldn't let him do theatrically.
All right, I'll buy that. I don't know if I'd like it.
Well, but it's yeah, right. But it's not like it's not like he walked into it knowing that, it's not like Orson Welles having the film taken away from him when he was doing something else and having the whole thing just done on their own, and him coming in and going, "What's this? This isn't the movie that I made."
Right.
So it's not that sort of thing. I mean, he still is the one who cut it down, and it's still his film.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, but you can kind of tell he does this and he says, "Oh, if I can get away with this, maybe I could do Titanic in 3D 20 years later." And now we have Titanic in 3D.
There is that.
And that's not a good precedent that he set that led to Titanic. I'm just saying, this is a guy who maybe things have gotten a little out of hand. I'm thinking intervention. Okay,
well,
so
at least he hasn't talked about Titanic 2 in 3D. So there's that, right?
If anybody could do it. Although he said that this was what he just came out and he said, I've shut down all other work on any properties that are outside of the Avatar universe. Did you read this?
No, I didn't, but that's good to hear.
He's done looking at anything that's not involved with Avatar somehow.
Does that mean he was trying to work on True Lies 2?
We should be so lucky. Okay.
Or maybe it was a prequel. It was the True Lies prequel. It was how they met. No, really, I work in the computers.
Okay, so let's talk about what you love about Aliens. What is it? How would you anchor a conversation about Aliens?
Well, first off, Aliens, I very distinctly remember the theatrical release of this film. I had a something akin to like a Big Brother in Big Brothers Big Sisters type of person in my life, and I had I went out, I saved my allowance, and I went and I bought the Aliens official movie magazine. Right?
Oh,
do you remember those?
Oh, yeah. I've got all of my Star Wars movie magazines here.
I am actually holding my pristine copy of my official movie magazine for Aliens right now. I still have it to this day. I've never let it go. So I had this and I read it, and I wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies yet at this time. And so I was, 13 when this came out. And actually, I was probably still 12 because I think it came out. I don't think it was summer. When did this come out? July 18th. So I was still 12 years old. And
wow.
So I wasn't allowed to watch it. However, I read my movie magazine, which has a novelized version of it across its pages, right?
Sure.
So I read it and I told my big brother, I convinced him because he's 18. And I said, "Hey, look, I already know the whole story. I've read my magazine. I know everything that's going to happen. And I know that the only swear word in it," because my parents were a little sensitive about me watching movies with a lot of swear words. I know the only swear word in the whole thing is at the end when she says, "Get away from her, you bitch." So I know that it's totally fine for me to go watch. So don't worry about asking my mom. Let's go. And I convinced him. I won out, and we went and saw it. And of course, it was so completely. There was so much more going on in the movie than was in my little novelized magazine version. And there's obviously a lot more swearing going on than in my little magazine version.
Dear.
So it was a great experience for me. It was so great for that reason, because it was everything and more that I wanted it to be. And I knew I shouldn't have been watching it, and I loved it. It was great. So I had a great first memory of this film. It was the only time I actually ever saw it in the theater because I definitely wasn't allowed to go watch it again.
Yeah. In 1986, Andy Nelson became a man.
That's right. And then, and then it was one of those VHS tapes that my buddy bought, and we burned through that as much as we could. And then, by the time the director's cut came out, I think that's about when I had it on Laserdisc, and I don't think I've ever watched the original cut since.
But see, so that's my point. Yeah. Like I say that I don't remember the theatrically. I remember going to the theater to see it, but I just don't remember the movie.
Yeah.
I'm totally.
But I very specifically remember all the differences.
Yeah, that's.
And I don't know why I remember, but I do.
That's like wasted cycles, man. Okay, so
it's like I'm Rain Man. Oh, that's new. Oh, that's new. That's new. It's like I've seen it 50 times or whatever, and I'm still pointing out to myself, oh yeah, that's one of the new things. Oh yeah, that's one of the new.
It's totally not new anymore.
I know, it's like it's been there.
It's
for
literally 20 years.
3 decades
it has
now.
been. Yeah, it has been. It has been there longer than the movie was released in its original form.
Oh man!
Like, can you even get the original cut anymore? Like.
Yeah.
If you were to order it somewhere, could you get it on Amazon or something?
Well, the latest anthology that came out on Blu-ray of the 4 films has the original cuts and the director's cuts of all 4 films. Well, They don't call them all director's cuts since David Fincher was not involved in the 3rd. But for all intents and purposes, they have extended cuts of all of them.
Yeah.
We'll say.
Fascinating. Okay, well, all right. So let's talk a little bit about because I don't know. Do you have a direction? I sort of have a direction. This is a tough one to talk about. So this movie. Well,
let's start at the beginning.
Yeah,
start it with the origins of the story, because I think it's interesting how it came about. And then,
you're talking about the actual dramatic storyline? Or the writing of the script and everything. Yeah, that part is interesting. So, all right, so go for it. Talk about James Cameron, the young James Cameron,
the young and kind of untested at that point. James Cameron.
He had just done Terminator.
Well,
he was in the middle of wrapping Terminator.
He actually started having meetings with David Giler. About this movie while the Terminator as his spec script was still kind of making its way around Hollywood.
Right.
And so, James Cameron at the time was actually married to Gale Ann Hurd, so he kind of had an in. But they had, somebody at Fox had said, oh, you should read this script, The Terminator. It's pretty good. And Giler liked it, and he had a meeting with James Cameron, and they kind of talked about some ideas. Nothing was really working. And then Giler was just like, we're thinking about maybe doing a sequel to Alien. And, that was extremely exciting to James Cameron, even though he played it totally cool. He's like, oh, that'd be interesting. And so they kind of batted around ideas, and he said that he'd go off and write it. Now, I think he had already done the Piranha 2 sequel, The Spawning.
Right.
He from that and working with Roger Corman on something, he had, let's see, he had a couple writing assignments that he was doing right then. Like he was writing Rambo,
right?
First Blood Part 2, and something else. I can't remember. Oh, and the Terminator. Well, no, he wasn't doing it. He already had the Terminator. There's something else that he was also writing. And then he said that he would also write Aliens, and he basically had like 3 months to get 3 scripts done, and he crammed them all out somehow.
Well, what I thought was interesting about that is that according to Gale Ann Hurd and David Giler, Gale Ann Hurd says that they gave Cameron the opportunity to write the script. And said, we like what we're seeing with Terminator, and we like where this is going, and we like your writing credits. If you keep this same kind of energy and Terminator is a success, we might let you direct it.
Right.
But according to Gail Ann Hurd, she said nobody at that time took that seriously. Like we knew it was a carrot, and nobody took that seriously. So when he actually got the nod to direct this movie, everybody was still sort of surprised that had come.
Yeah. I think a lot of that was because, at the time, I mean, the Terminator was a spec script, and they weren't even sure if it would work. So
he ends up. Is that an important characterization that he in just sort of how the script came to him? And I mean, how does that relate to you?
Well,
do you think the success of the movie, like his?
Well, I think here's what I think is important about it is because James Cameron was so taken by Ridley Scott's Alien when he saw it, and that entire universe. And he said to himself, he's like, there's no way that you can just write a sequel to this that's just another horror movie that is going to be effective. You're basically just dumping a new group of people into the same world, and it's just like any other horror sequel that's out there. It's just going to be junk. And so he said, we have to do something new with it. We have to do something different. We have to take those elements that worked, but we have to find a way to do something new and unique to make it its own amazing story. And so what he did, and I think it was very smart, and there's always the battle between the Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens as far as which is better, but he said, I'm going to from the horror universe, and I'm going to create a combat movie. I'm going to create kind of a sci-fi action movie instead. And that's what he did. And that's why I think it became a very standalone film and a very successful film on its own. And that's why I think the origin of the story is important, because of the direction that he chose to take it and the way that he decided to define that film.
I think you have a really good point, and I think that's why these movies work in particularly as a pair. And we'll talk next week about the how the subsequent films did and did not kind of meet the bar that was set by these movies. But really, you get the feeling, the way, and I find it so fascinating because Aliens picks up 57 years after the close of Alien, and there are so many stylistic choices that were made in this movie, and sort of tempo choices, pacing choices, structural choices, set design choices that make it feel just really perfectly advanced for 57 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she wakes up, and yet the most important point is that it feels like you are really part of the exact same universe. When you watch these two movies side by side, like one after the other, I mean, you really could, with great fidelity, I think, just roll straight from one into the other and cut them together and end up with a great, very long single film experience that works really well together. And it ends up being, over the course of the 2-movie story arc, really well paced. It's sort of a 6-act, 7-act, screenplay structure, but it ends up being something that really works.
Yeah, you're right. They're great films, and I think that's James Cameron set a precedent when he began working on this film by being very specific in his paying homage and his respects to what Ridley Scott had done before and Ridley's team of people. He very specifically wanted it to look and feel just like the same world. He actually studied the shooting style that Ridley had and watched how, like so much so, like what types of lenses was he using. Like he saw that Ridley used a lot more long lens shots with a lot of, things, foreground objects between, or in front of the what we were watching. And so that's something that he hadn't really done in his films. And so he wanted to pattern himself after that as much as possible. And I think that is a testament to how important it was to make sure that it did feel like it was completely part of the same universe.
One of the things I think is really interesting that is a sort of a difference is how the film uses the mystery of the universe that we exist inside of. In the first film, one of the things we talked about was the mystery surrounding sort of the prime alien, right? Not the horror alien, but the alien represented by the space jockey. and how in the first half of the movie there is, if you've never seen it before, you think you're going in this direction, right? You think you're going in this in a direction that ultimately Ridley Scott knows he's not taking you. It's the mystery itself ends up being kind of the MacGuffin. You think that this is going to be a film about stumbling across this alien, this alien spaceship, and what is this alien spaceship? And suddenly,
right,
you run into the eggs, and there's a face hugger, and the key point, and what I stumbled on was this video, this recent interview with Damon Lindelof from On the Verge with Joshua Topolsky, and he said something that I think was really key. Now, Damon Lindelof is credited sort of co-writer on Prometheus, and so this ends up being sort of part and parcel to the overall alien discussion. He says, what's so fascinating about the use of mystery is that the resolution to those early questions is secondary to their own survival, like the character's survival, right?
Right.
What Ridley Scott ends up doing is taking us down this path and showing us this story that ultimately we don't need to care about and we can let go. That is not the same in Aliens, and I think that's part of James Cameron's choice to kind of be more upfront with the combat movie. It's not, there is no mystery about sort of the setting, the gestalt of Aliens, that we are left saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to fight about at the end of this movie? What is the big mystery that is not resolved? I mean, we know how it's going to be resolved. What is intense for us is the experience as we're having it. And that's in contrast to Alien. What is intense for us ends up being how the film unfolds in our minds after we see it. That's what makes Alien, I think, such a perfect film.
Yeah.
Whereas Aliens is such a present film. You enjoy it while you're in it, like Chinese food.
But it's great Chinese food.
It's I'm a major fan of Chinese food. Major fan. This is Chinese food that delivers to your house. It's that good. It is. I love Aliens. It is high on my list of movies we like. It works, and that's why I say it works so well as a partner to Alien and the way the stories are constructed. It's just a different way to do it, and I think it's worth noting how Alien in so many ways, as horrific as the horror was, was much more gentle about how the story unfolded. In my opinion, and I think Aliens, I think was more traditionally paced.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
and I think you're right. I think it does create something about Alien that will always retain that mystery and that air about it that makes it such a unique film.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
And Aliens, while, I think it's, also just as close to a perfect film as you can get, it's much more of just a genre-specific film. And it's like a perfect sci-fi action film, in the vein of Predator or something like that. But it's so well done. But you're right, it doesn't have that, that general mystery about it that just makes it stick in your mind. Like it doesn't sear into your mind the way that Alien does. So
I think that's it, and I think that's an maybe that's a contextual point where we're looking at Alien, which is crafted by Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett and Ridley Scott, these guys who had already had, significant careers in crafting story. And James Cameron was still pretty new. And, his role model was Roger Corman. And, it just reads to me as not quite as sophisticated a story structure when you compare it to Alien. That's all. That's my point.
Sure.
I'm going to belabor that some more. No, I'm not. I'm going to stop talking.
The great thing about the director's cut, I think, is that at least it's giving us a more depth to the story, because a lot of the stuff that I think had been taken out was some of the maternal nurturing stuff that Ripley felt. Like she finds out that her daughter, she gets that picture of her daughter from Burke, finds out her daughter's been dead for years and died of old age while she was in hypersleep drifting across the universe. Those sorts of moments, I think, pepper the film with a lot more depth and heart than the theatrical release had, and I think that's what makes it a stronger film. You're right; it's still not going to be kind of that same defining thing that Alien was, but it still is a great film.
That was the feeling that I got the first time I saw the director's cut, was that it was one of those forehead like slapping moments where you think, how could he have let this bit go? Like, this bit ends up being so important to Ripley's character.
Yeah, and to her connection to Newt and that whole relationship, and why
she cares at all about Newt. People are like, the entire colony has been decimated, and she is putting it all on the line for this little girl, and you see why. Why this connection ends up being so important to her. Mm-hmm. Just that magnified importance. And I think that's a big deal. It also makes, I think, Carter Burke's role even more sort of worthy of kind of disdain when all of the secrets start to come out, and he is, he ends up being, I think Paul Reiser is a terrific performance from Paul Reiser.
I wish that he did more films like this.
I know. I
mean, he's a funny guy, but man, it's just so great seeing him in something like this.
It really, I mean, it's one of those keystone roles in the film, and I thought it was just pitch perfect. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about casting and how that came together? Or do you want to go somewhere else first?
No, I think let's jump into casting. I think the first interesting note about the casting, though, is in this whole process of getting this script written and perfected, and 20th Century Fox ended up, once there's a changing of the guard there, and once they decided to start moving forward with it, which was several years later after he had done the Terminator and all that stuff, they were kind of geared up and ready to go. And then they went and presented the script to Sigourney Weaver, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to be shooting this in September. Are you interested in being on board?" And she's like, "Oh, I wish somebody had told me." Like, nobody had talked to her or told her that they were really going to be moving forward with this. And so she ended up, I believe from this film, she was the first actress, because she kind of had them over the ringer. She was paid $1 million for the role, and I think she was the first actress to be paid $1 million.
I believe that is true. The way I understood it, she said, I want $1 million, and they said, "You're insane," and went back to James Cameron and said, "You know what? We really think you should go down the road of doing an Alien script with no Ripley."
Right.
And he threatened to walk.
Yeah,
and once the sort of House of Cards starts to fall apart, they probably could have ended up with a nice Predator feeling kind of a film, but she ended up getting exactly what she wanted, as you say.
Yeah, and thank the heavens that they decided to do that, because it's I think it was so important to keep that story going for these films to be successful.
Yeah. I think so too, and it ends up being an important film and an important contribution because of it. So that was Sigourney Weaver. She was this film really became about her, and I remember reading that she was surprised when she read the script and found that it was quite so much a Ripley script, and I think that was that ends up being a good decision. The thing that the thing that I found interesting in looking at was Michael Biehn, and how he ended up in the film, because he ends up, he plays a principal character and Corporal Dwayne Hicks, but he was a replacement. It was originally supposed to be James Remar.
Yeah.
Who, I think I know. We know James Remar most recently as Dexter's dad but he's been in a lot of stuff. He's usually the grizzled police chief.
Yeah, right. Sex and the City.
Yeah.
He's in the Cotton Club, 48 Hours. He's been in a lot of stuff.
He's done a lot of voiceover work, animated voiceover work. But this was an interesting one that he was originally supposed to do that and was ousted.
I don't think he was ousted. He walked.
Yeah, artistic differences between James Cameron. I mean, I think So they bring Michael Biehn in, who was originally not supposed to be cast, but knew Cameron from Terminator, and ended up flying out on a Friday to start shooting on a Monday. Skipped all of the pre-drill training that the Marines went through for weeks and weeks, and just walked in to shoot.
Right.
Ends up being, I don't know. Would you say how would you compare his, grizzled male hero roles between this and Terminator? Which do you remember him for more?
Oh boy, that's tricky. I think they're both so important. I think I remember him more for this film. I don't know. That's an interesting question. They're both such different characters, but I feel like I remember him more for this one just because Aliens stands out in my head more than the Terminator. I saw it at a younger age.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know. I asked that question because it's a loaded question. I think this ends up being kind of pivotal for his career, certainly. And I think this is where I remember him from, sir. Yeah. The rest of the Marines, who would you like?
Jenette Goldstein,
right?
I'll just throw her out there, mainly because she's kind of a James Cameron regular. She's appeared in, I think, all of his films except for Avatar, if I recall. And the funny thing about her is she's not Hispanic, but she played Vasquez in Aliens and had kind of a tan. But she's the Irish mother with the children in Titanic.
Right.
And so it just always strikes me that's very funny that she is kind of.
And she gets doesn't she get a sword through her skull? The T-1000 sword through her skull in Terminator 2?
No, she has the sword.
Oh.
And she puts the sword through her husband's skull.
That's what it is. What it is.
Yeah.
There's something about a sword in a skull.
Yes.
The sword in the skull.
She's already been killed by the T-1000.
Right. So, Carrie Henn. Well, you know what's interesting about this, about the casting of this film, is that because they shot it at Pinewood Studios in London.
Right.
And I had not thought about this, that in order to make this movie, they had to go to great lengths to satisfy union regulations to go through every British union member who could possibly be in this film. And because Cameron had set the standard that it needs to be an American military organization, right? He wanted the American accents, American English accents. He wanted all of that sort of grizzled feel. The casting director, whose name escapes me all of a sudden, but she said it was grueling to do that because all the British, even the British actors who came in to test for the part, who had convincing, passable American accents. She said they were too soft. And even Americans who had been living and gotten their union cards, British union cards, to come in and act, as a local, they were Americans and they had grown too soft. So they ended up starting to ship people over from the U.S. That's how they got around the regulations. I hadn't made that connection that would be a flaming hoop that they would need to jump through is to go through the process of getting through all the British actors, especially when you have guys like Bill Paxton and Paul Reiser and Lance Henriksen.
Oh yeah.
Well, we should probably go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, it's interesting that he chose that. I mean, I can see why he did, and I I mean, it's hard to picture anyone else in this film because I think they all work so well. But it is interesting that he went through such a rigmarole to make sure that he cast it with just Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So
So Lance Henriksen.
oh yeah.
First of all, talk a little bit about your impression of the android roles in this movie, in these two movies.
Well, it's great the way that they played them off of each other, and I think that was to James Cameron's screenwriting smarts that he chose to keep an android in the story, but allow us to know about it from the start, so that we were kind of skeptical as to whether he would be just working for the company. And the fact that he ends up, really kind of helping all the way through to the end, I thought it was great. It's a nice way to kind of keep that element of the story going. Which they continue through. Well, I guess there aren't any androids in the third one, but there is in the fourth. So it's something that they keep going with.
Yeah, the fourth is an interesting play off of that. I look forward to talking to that one, and it's even more interesting in Prometheus, where it looks like we see some of the universe. That's one of the areas where the universes sort of collide here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is looking at the kind of the kickoff of the android revolution.
Right, which will be very interesting to see. I'm excited.
Right. So Lance Henriksen ends up being, and no disrespect to Ian Holmes, but I think Lance Henriksen is really the definitive android in the series. I mean, that guy, he just crushed it. He's
great.
He was he so brilliantly captured the blend of just sort of ego-free intelligence and 12-year-old pride.
Yeah.
It was that space between I'll be your trained monkey. I'll do the knife trick. Mm-hmm. But I really would rather you not call me an android or robot, but rather an artificial synthetic human.
Right.
So.
And I take it back. There is an android in the third movie, and it's Lance Henriksen again. It's another one of him. So yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. This is one of those where I desperately need to see Alien 3 again. That's not one of those movies that I put in very often. I didn't actually remember that there was an Alien 3.
Well, we'll have to discuss our plans for that after this recording.
Right.
Okay. But Lance Henriksen, he's fantastic.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. Carrie Henn, we mentioned her.
Right.
She was, I mean, I think it was, other than somebody who had done some commercials, her first film, and as far as I know, one of her only ones.
Yes. Her brother was in it and cut.
Well, he's in the director's cut.
He's in the director's cut, yeah.
Right. Her brother plays her brother.
Right. Lucky find. Bill Paxton. Game over, man.
That is one of the defining lines in cinema history. That line, I think, goes down with so many great movie lines that are just... In fact, I think that's almost more quotable than so many other movie lines. Like, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. That is a fantastic movie line. You don't hear it quoted that often, but Game Over, Man, I hear quoted probably more than any other movie line because you can reference it in so many different ways.
But it's the way he says it.
And that's what makes it a great line, is because Bill Paxton as Hudson, man, the way that he delivered that line, the way he played the character, spot on perfect.
The what I was surprised in terms of his quotability, it's peppered throughout the film. I remembered Game Over, Man and that whole bit, but I don't know if you've been keeping score, but we've been getting our asses kicked. Like that just sort of whiny tone, it comes every time he speaks. Once they get into it, every time he speaks, there's something worth quoting. He's great. Do you think this role did this role damage your impression of him in other parts that he's played since?
No, I don't think so. Because I don't think when I watch something like Apollo 13, I don't go, gosh, all I see is Hudson. I like that doesn't happen to me.
See, the thing is, he had just come off a Weird Science where he was also that same sort of character.
Yeah.
And then he does Aliens, and then he's, Apollo 13, Twister, Titanic, True Lies. But I still to this day have trouble taking him seriously. I really do. I can't. I think he's one of the actors that I just really. When I see him trying to speak normally, listen to me talk about it. I think he's trying to speak normally because he played Hudson so convincingly.
Yeah.
So a testament to his role here, and I'm sorry, Bill, you did too good a job.
You should see him in Near Dark because he's great in that.
Yeah. I've forgotten about Near Dark. That's right.
And A Simple Plan. I thought he was great in A Simple Plan. And Frailty. Did you see Frailty?
Wow.
Him and Matthew McConaughey and
I don't think I actually saw. I didn't actually see Frailty.
Oh, we should put that on our list.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's surprisingly a great movie. Really, really kind of a creepy little film.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll see that. He's anyway. I think he did a terrific job in this movie, and it makes he's sort of the masthead, I think, of the film, the character masthead of the film. That is one of the most memorable pieces. Obviously, we talked about Paul Reiser. What a terrific job he did. Mark Rolston was Marine in the first part of the film. I just think he's an interesting guy to look at.
He is.
He's just this tall,
mean. Boy, does he look mean.
He just looks mean, and
yet he looks like somebody who would regularly have a big thing of acid burned into his skin. Doesn't he look like that sort of mean guy?
Yes, exactly. But what I think is so interesting about the relationship between Mark Rolston's character and Jenette Goldstein's character is that Vasquez still sort of feels like she has him as subservient to her, and I think they play that really well, and they are the two smart gunners, and the tallest guy in the unit and the shortest woman in the unit both have the biggest weapons. I think that was a great play, and it adds some interesting character to the unit, personality of the unit.
Right.
But we need to talk about the alien and how the aliens changed from that movie to this movie.
A lot of thought went into it, and I'm glad it did, because they really wanted these aliens to not just look like people running around in costumes. We were going to be seeing so many of them that they had to do something to make them look unique. And so they cast a lot of like dancers and acrobats and gymnasts and people who could really move in interesting ways to play these aliens. And I think they only had the budget to make, I want to say, like 16 of the costumes. Not a lot.
Right.
And those costumes unique ways. And aside from that, they also did a lot with puppets. They had about 10 different articulated puppets that they could move through hallways and things and have them creeping around on walls in ways that really were not things that looked human. And I think that's the biggest strength with this film. And I'll tell you, the one of the two weaknesses I always have a problem with still in Alien is the one moment when the alien reaches out to Dallas, when it's about to get Dallas, and it just looks like a man going boo.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah, I do.
And then the other problem is always the android head when it's not Ian Holmes.
Right.
But they worked so hard on this film to make the aliens always look real. And the moment for me that always defines it is when they realize that the aliens are in the ceiling,
mm-hmm.
and Hicks sticks his head up and looks with his light, with his flashlight, and you see all these aliens, like, they're all moving in these creepy ways coming toward him. And for me, that just defines these aliens in this film.
Oh, just the way they're hanging on the ceiling.
Yeah, just the way they move. Yeah. It looks like insects. It doesn't look like people.
Well, and I think that was the big change for me. Like when you see how the Ridley Scott alien sort of evolved and over 57 years, right? I got the feeling that the thought that they put into the single alien versus the hive of aliens really is that insect mentality, and you get to see how the behavior of the alien changes when it is when it is kind of in the context of other aliens.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. I really liked the way the film moved through time like that with this sort of singular character.
Yeah, and that's not even mentioning the Queen.
Right.
Which, we haven't even talked about here, but that was a huge addition that James Cameron brought into this, knowing that he had to do something new, not just the same thing that people had seen, but we needed to get a chance to see something unique in this film as well. And
all right. Where do you stand on the Queen controversy?
Is there a controversy?
Well, I think there is kind of a controversy, particularly in the context of the of Alien and the way Alien ended, the director's cut of Alien.
Oh, you're talking about the eggs?
Yeah, the eggs versus the sort of metamorphosis process, right? Like there was some, when I was looking at the pre-Aliens reporting on Alien, right? When you go back and you look at what people had written and the old videos that you can find on YouTube, where Ridley Scott and team are talking about, what is going on at the end of Alien, and there is this sort of sense that when they cocoon people, they're somehow changing into some part of the alien gestation process, and that there wasn't really a need for a queen, or in fact that when James Cameron went and put the queen in Aliens, you end up with a conflict or at least some sort of kind of dramatic dissonance. Why do they need a queen when the alien, this perfect creature, specimen, can already reproduce without it? That was part of the controversy. So it sounds like you stand like you don't even care. You didn't even know it.
No, and here's my take. I am of the mind that, as has been proven in science and history with animals.
Oh, good. You're going to bring in science to this show.
I'm bringing in
science and history.
That's right.
Oh man.
That there are instances where if a species does not have any other of its kind to mate with, that it has like somehow built into its system a way that basically allows it to reproduce with itself or kind of create another of itself, right? I learned all this from Jurassic Park when the dinosaur got pregnant.
Life finds a way, man. Life finds a way.
Exactly. Life finds a way. So my philosophy is...
We are so sunk. Like, this is like, why would... Oh.
Go ahead. This is good stuff.
Share me your philosophy.
The aliens naturally come from these, this reproductive cycle that we've seen, and that it all starts with these eggs that are laid by the queen, right? However, if an alien gets to a place where it is separated from its colony, the only way that it has to reproduce is by using this thing that's deep within its genetic core of creating another egg out of its victims, and it may be a different type of egg that normally the queen would lay, but it still is going to be an egg that is going to be able to create a face hugger and start the cycle over again and create a whole new branch of the alien family. So that's my philosophy, and that's why I think they work together still. I've never had a problem, even once I saw Alien, the director's cut, and I saw that. I was like, you know what? It's all by itself. It's the only way that it has to to keep its species going.
That was amazing. That was amazing. I don't know if that was amazing because I honestly can't tell you if I feel like you just totally made that up off the spot. Like you just manufactured a philosophy to answer my question. I almost think that you did, and I'm really impressed by that. You did an amazing job there. I just want you to know that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The budget of this film was $18 million.
Yeah. That is so little compared to today's dollars, isn't it?
That is stunning.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of let that sink in, because this is what I would classify as a big movie. Like, this is a big movie. This was the biggest movie of the year that I saw it, certainly. I don't remember any movie that has stuck with me like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me it sticks with me as like the biggest production, the most significant kind of investment in production design.
Yeah.
At $18 million.
Just for perspective's sake, Avatar, $425 million.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's a small chunk of change. I mean, it's $86 we're talking about. So I mean, obviously there's some time put between it.
Sure.
But these were days when people would use that money and they would do a lot with it. Ridley Scott proved that with Alien, with the little money he had, and I think James Cameron proved that with this one as well.
Well, this is and it has performed well.
Yeah,
it did very well in the theaters. Do you have the box office in front of you?
I do.
I know you do.
It domestically, it ended up making just over 85 million. Internationally, 98 million. So worldwide, it made 183 million.
183 million on an $18 million bet.
Yeah, so they did good with that one, and it got 7 Oscar nominations. Sigourney Weaver got her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress for this. And I think a lot of that came from the development of the story with Newt. I think that was a very important element. Also, best music for James Horner's score. He's one of the J's. We got another J.
Yeah, I know. I have that list ready to post.
James, Jerry, Joe, John.
Yes, I do. I thought you were just BSing me when you said that last week, and it turns out you're totally not. You really actually have that list in exactly that order.
It's the list of my J composers.
See what I want to do? I want to put a special page up that only has lists.
We've got enough of them.
I know, now we do, and I still haven't finished my cornfields list. best movies. I know,
I'm waiting.
So I will do that this week. I'm going to put up our page of lists, and it's going to start with composers whose name begins with a J. This is going to be the most obscure page of lists.
I know. People will go there when they're looking for something to help them sleep.
The movies we like, lists of lists.
Oh man, that is too funny.
So all right, so
best. So James Horner was nominated for best score, and this was for a score that he wrote in a very short period of time. He didn't even have a film to watch, essentially, because James Cameron was still shooting it, and so James Horner had to kind of wing it, especially like the last scene when Ripley's fighting the alien. He had no idea what he was writing. He winged it and hoped that it fit, basically. And he got an Oscar nomination for it, so kudos to him. It stressed out the relationship between him and James Cameron, and he was convinced he'd never work with James Cameron again. But lo and behold, James came knocking on his door for Titanic, and look who walked away with the Oscar on that one.
Yeah.
So, and of course, they've been working ever since. Well, on Avatar, the one other movie since then.
Well, but yeah, no, I have a real problem with the score, and it's all my fault, because when this came around, I was making movies with my friends in my neighborhood, and we were cribbing, scores as soundtracks.
Yes.
And this one is actually serves as the soundtrack to the hit neighborhood film Dr. Turboshots and his sidekick Throttle.
Nice.
In which I played the lead. And so I can't, when I listen to this movie, I realize, how do I know that? And why is the music does just not fit this movie? It's because it turns out it was destined to be in my neighborhood film, Dr. Turboshots and his sidekick Throttle.
And what's funny is it also ended up in my film, The Wired Gate, the classic serial killer movie about a serial killer who wires people's back gates. It was pretty silly, but I think the exact same thing.
It's just it's ruined to me. I listened to it, I'm like, what is this goofball fighting with the alien? It's just it's a comedy. It's vaudeville. Right. What's supposed to be happening is this early paying to Michael Bay. It's a tribute to the Michael Bay films to come. That's what Dr. Turboshots was. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
So it also was nominated for best. Let me just finish reading.
Finish. Do your thing.
The best art direction for Peter Lamont and Crispian Salas did a great job. Best editing, Ray Lovejoy, another person working under the gun along with James Horner, frantically trying to cut this thing together because it was being released in a very short period of time. Best sound, Graham Hartstone, Nicholas Lemessieur, Michael Carter, and Roy Charman. And then best sound editing by Don Sharp, which he won for that. And best visual effects for Robert Skotak, Stan Winston, John Richardson, and Suzanne Benson. And they won for that. So it got 2 out of 7 nominations it won for. So kudos to them. It was well worth it.
Yeah, it was one of the pieces that I was watching on this one was David Giler. I should say actually the John. Well, I need to bring up the link here because I actually need to credit it. I don't even know if he's a friend of the show, but he's a friend of mine on Facebook. And when I posted my picture of me and the cat watching Aliens last night, my friend John Foster posted a link to Superior Firepower, The Making of Aliens, which is the full 3-hour feature-length documentary plus extras of the extras made for the 2003 release, which is actually available in its entirety on YouTube. I don't know how they
I don't either.
That, but the whole thing is up there, and I had not looked for it, and I hadn't seen that in a long time, and it's really worth watching. So we'll post a link to that video in particular, and thanks to John for posting that link.
Yeah, and it's on the Blu-ray if you get it that way. But if you don't have it, then definitely check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, it ends up, it's great that it is there and we have access to it. And now that I said that out loud, no, David Giler, it says in there, I said people who worked on the film. There were a lot of people on this film who left because of sort of artistic differences. You can kind of write those off to working with James Cameron, and I think it was David Giler who said, a lot of people said that it was just hard to work with James. He's tough to work with, and he's prone to these fits of kind of rage when things don't go his way. And there's a funny clip of him trying to do they're in the lab scene, when Ripley and Newt wake up and they realize that the face hugger jar has been tossed over and they're alone without a weapon and in this room with 2 face huggers. And he's trying to shoot the scene where the face hugger leaps from a cabinet directly into the camera. And there is a guy standing directly to camera right, and he's holding a piece of fish wire, and you hear James Cameron's voice say, really fairly calmly, he says, I just did this with my video just now. It took me 7 minutes, and I did the whole thing, and too bad I don't know why we can't do this. You're not wearing gloves. Talking to the guy holding the fish line, and the guy says, I'm fine. And he says, no, you're not wearing gloves. You can't pull this hard when you're not wearing gloves. You go get some gloves and call me when you're ready to work. I thought that would be a guy who quit.
That's funny. That is funny.
It didn't seem to be like they captured a huge, gigantic rage fest. But right. But he seems like an exacting guy.
Well, and that's interesting because he and Ridley Scott, I both think, are that way. And Ridley Scott says something interesting on the making of on the Alien film, where he says, you have to be you're the one calling the shots. If you start giving in to people, you're not going to end up with what it is that you want, and you may end up, not getting into fights with people, and you may end up, feeling like you've got these kind of great relationships and all that. And I'm totally botching how he actually put this very nicely, but he said, you're not going to end up with what you want. And in the end, people are going to, it's going to be obvious that it's not the vision that you were trying to create, and it's less of a film. And yes, you're going to create that dissension at the time, but in after the fact, when people look back on it, they'll be able to say, you know what, he was right.
That it's funny you bring that up. That was another bit that Lindelof said in his interview regarding working with Ridley Scott. He says, in many respects, the way I wrote this film was to sit down with Ridley and ask him a bunch of questions and treat it much more like Mad Libs. Like, Ridley tells you exactly what he wants to see, and then you go write it. And yeah, you inject kind of why they brought you in, but this was a very different movie to write because he has such a clear vision of what he wants, and ends up taking a deep ownership of the screenwriting process. And James Cameron, having actually written the screenplay, has even more of a and when you write your own work, you have such a vested interest in having it come out just the way you want it.
Well, you're the one who has the picture in your head.
Yeah. I found that really compelling, and I love this movie. I love what came together out of it. It's a movie that just absolutely stands up as a real highlight. And I say again, I have trouble watching this movie out of the context of Alien. I think I get a much better experience actually watching these two movies back to back. And I think in fact it should be required that you only watch these movies sequentially.
It's funny that you say that, because I thinking back on it, I realized I actually saw Aliens first.
Oh.
And then I saw Alien. I think my stepmother was like horrified that I saw Aliens without having seen Alien, and so I saw Alien after the fact. And so for me, I think between the two, I still would put Alien as the one that I like more. As vague as that may be when you say things like that, but Aliens will always stand out as kind of just a strong film by itself for me. I don't have that same sense that you do.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to recut it. I'm going to recut it.
Very valid. You're going to recut it.
I'm going to recut it, and I'm going to send it to you. The recut.
What are you going to call it?
Aliens.
Aliens.
Alien, but the S will be in parentheses. Or just like maybe redacted.
Nice.
I'm gonna need a good tagline.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work on that. This is when I sort of feel like we're skipping a really significant part, which is the Act 3, the rescue. But I don't need to talk about it.
I just I don't need to either, I guess. I only regarding that, I will say everything with the Queen and the battle and Bishop, and by the way, this is complete aside, but there's a track on the soundtrack called Queen Takes Bishop, which I always get a hoot at that track name because it's just a great reference to chess. But that whole bit, I think, is just so solid, and it's just a testament to the great film that has led up to that point.
Truly.
Yeah, fantastic film.
Any other closing remarks? Your Honor?
I don't think so. I think we covered it pretty well. I'm pretty happy with this film.
Me too. We did a great job with this film. We really did.
On the cover of my official movie magazine, it says,
yes,
Michael Biehn in savage combat with the alien army.
That's awesome.
I love it.
And it's, better than Starship Troopers.
Better than Starship Troopers. Yes, it is.
Did you, in just one final housekeeping note, did your actual piece get picked up by Entertainment Weekly?
I was off by a week. They asked me if they could publish it, but it's not coming out until this Friday.
Oh, well,
so
something to look forward to then.
I know. So I'm still, I'm looking forward to opening it up and seeing if they used my little Prometheus.
Ooh, I can't wait.
I know.
All right, go to bed, Andrew. Take care of yourself.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
And you. Here at The Next Reel, we've been passionately discussing movies week after week since 2011. That's a lot of movies and a lot of conversation.
Sure is, Pete. And to be honest, it's a lot of work too. But it's work that we love. If you have been enjoying our show, we'd like to remind you that there are ways to support us, even if you're not able to become a member just yet. You might have heard us talk about our new watch page, where we've listed every movie that we've talked about, paired with Amazon or Apple links to rent or buy the movie.
Now we'd like to introduce you to our originals page. Let's take a trip down memory lane, Andy. Do you remember what the first film we discussed on The Next Reel was that was an adaptation?
Well, let's see. It wasn't obviously our Indiana Jones series, because those were all original. Then we did Charlie Kaufman. Oh, of course. It was adaptation from Susan Orlean's Orchid Thief.
Exactly. We have covered quite a few adaptations over the years, and now we're providing a way for our listeners to delve into the original source material.
That's right. Just head over to thenextreel.com/originals, and you can see the list of all the adaptations that we have discussed.
From our David Fincher series, featuring The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, Zodiac, Benjamin Button, and Fight Club.
To our Paranoia trilogy with The Parallax View and All the President's Men, we have covered a variety of adaptations.
Those were some great discussions, especially Fight Club. And let's not forget our baseball series with The Natural and Field of Dreams, adapted from Shoeless Joe.
And Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. So many memorable conversations.
Absolutely. And you know what's exciting? Each purchase you make through our links doesn't cost you any extra, but a percentage goes to support The Next Reel and our family of shows.
You can support us while diving deeper into these fantastic stories, whether it's the paper, audiobook, or Kindle version.
We've also included plays and movies. If they were the source, we've put it on there.
So what are you waiting for? Head to thenextreel.com/originals, support The Next Reel, and get your next great read today.
I'm off to reread Fight Club. Now, where did I put my Kindle?